We are called Neot Kedumim. We are the world's only biblical nature reserve here in the heart of Israel, halfway between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. The man that founded this place, Nogel Reveni, he had a dream, a passion to bring the Bible to life. He loved botany, he loved the trees in this land, and he loved the Bible. And he wanted to connect them so that people could come here and learn about the Bible in context, but not just from words and from teachers in four walls of a church or a synagogue or a classroom, but to come out into the Bible as it was, to be able to see the trees, smell them, touch them, taste them, hear the birds, feel them, and basically immerse yourself in the learning. And that way you learn, that way you remember. I went to a school where I learned the Bible. I don't remember much of it, but here I remember it all because you feel it as you learn it. In 1964, he approached David Ben-Gurion with his dream. He said, I want some land to create a physical garden here in the land of Israel. And David Ben-Gurion took this area of land, which was in 1964, right on the border of Jordan. It was before the 1967 war, that was the border with Jordan over there. David Ben-Gurion gave him 625 acres of land to turn into a biblical nature reserve. Now, the land that he received was as bare as that hill you see in the distance there with nothing on it. But when he received the land, he turned it into this garden by bringing thousands of trucks of soil, by bringing the rocks, making the paths, putting in the watering systems, and by planting the trees. He took the Bible in one hand, he took a shovel in the other, and if it was mentioned in the Bible, he planted it here. And we know in the Bible there is a list of 7 species that were promised in the desert to the children of Israel, that when they arrived in the land of Israel, they would come into a land of the 7 species. This was in order to encourage them on their walk in the desert. The dates, the pomegranates, the grapes, the figs, the olives, the wheat and the barley. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 8 lists those 7 species. We started with those 7 and took another 120 or so that are mentioned in the Bible, and this is how we created this paradise. In 1964 there was nothing here, and you will see now what has grown since then. So here we have the grapevines. The leaves you see are newly out. It is spring. Everything is just beginning to grow. A lot of the Arab population will be using the grapevine leaves to make stuffed grapevines. And what you can see here is just the first tiny grapes beginning to grow. In the next few weeks, these are actually the blossom. They're going to flower, they're going to blossom, and gradually they're going to grow. You have to understand, when the spies were sent in to spy out the land, what did they come back with? They came back with a bunch of grapes so giant it required 2 of them to carry them on their shoulders. So you have to understand that the original land was so rich, so abundant, such giant grapes. These aren't so giant, but I promise they are very tasty. And there is a verse here, which is one of my favorite in the book of Kings, chapter 5, verse 5. It says here, all the days of Solomon, Judah and Israel from Dan to Beersheba dwelt in safety, everyone under his own vine and under his own fig tree. That is a modern Hebrew expression for a person who has arrived at a good time of their life. A person who feels good with himself, has worked hard and earned his pension, his time to relax, can dwell under his vine and relax in the shade of his vine. And I, for one, I know the searing summer heat, to be able to relax under a grapevine, preferably eating fresh grapes, is only an added bonus. You see here the pomegranate in blossom. If you look carefully, the blossom is in the shape of the pomegranate, and if you look underneath, the actual fruit is already in its shape. When you have a full pomegranate, a full ripe pomegranate, it has at the end of it this crown hanging from the end of it, and obviously it develops big, ripe, juicy. There is a myth that says the pomegranate has 613 seeds in it. There are 613 commandments in the Bible. I have counted them with my children. We got to 623, so I reckon we earned another 20 commandments somewhere along the way. The pomegranate is obviously very lush. Oh, here's one almost starting to develop. You can already see the shape of the pomegranate there. You'd have to come back in October time if you wanted to eat the ripe pomegranate off the tree. And it is, if you go into any shop selling religious artifacts in the land of Israel, you will find pomegranates inspired or are inspiring artists world over. It is very, very prominent in art here in the land. And also, if you take the book of the Song of Songs, which is a very poetic description of two lovers, they use very strong nature language. It says here, your mouth is lovely, your brow behind your veil gleams like a pomegranate split open. And yes, the pomegranates, you'll see them halfway through the season, they are split open and they are glistening inside with the little pearls of pomegranates inside them. The pomegranate was used in the Bible as a decoration on the gown of the high priest. This olive tree, you see it now with its tiny buds on it. Come back in November time. I've never seen so many buds as this year. This tree will be laden with, well, I would say black olives or green olives. It depends what time of year you come, because green and black olives come off the same tree. They start as green. You can pick them as green or you can pick them as black, but this tree is going to be laden with it. A very, very heavy, rich tree. Where do we first hear the olive tree in the Bible? Where's it first mentioned? If I was to pluck one of these leaves and put it in my mouth, maybe that would get you to understand or remember that in the book of in the story of Noah and the ark, we have here, the dove came back to him toward evening, and there in its bill was a plucked off olive leaf. Then Noah knew that the waters had deceased on the earth. So here's an expression that says that the dove brought light into the world. Why does the olive tree mean light? What is the symbol of light? Well, first of all, the oil from the olive provides the purest flame. You could bring light into dark by lighting your olive oil lamp. The tree itself has two sides to the leaves, the dark side and the white side. And as the day goes on, and on a breezy day, today there is no breeze, the tree literally flickers like a flame. And as far as the Jewish people are concerned, the olive tree is the symbol of the menorah, the candelabra in the temple, and the light that we've kept alive for thousands of years. And it was taken from the temple 2,000 years ago. However, it is now the emblem for the state of Israel. And that menorah, with the two olive branches either side of it, are the fact that we have kept that light alive and brought back and created the state of Israel. This olive tree symbolizes us light and continuance. And obviously its main symbol is that of peace. The date palm has to be low down in the valley because the date palm needs the coolness of the ground and is tall, so the top of it reaches the sky and needs the heat of the sky. It needs both. It needs the heat and the coolness. However, the date palm in the scriptures, in the book of Psalms, is compared, as you can hear, the righteous bloom like a date palm. They thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. The righteous is compared to a date palm because the righteous person, a learned person, a good person, has his roots amongst the people, down with the everyday people, but he needs his head up high in order to study and to be able to absorb the higher studies. The dates will only be ripe in September time, and you have to keep coming back. Come back in July for the figs, August for the grapes, September for the dates, October for the pomegranates, November for the olives. We don't have everything offered to us on one plate here. Everything is a slow process where we have to wait and pray for the rain and hope that everything goes into fruit, and then we can enjoy eating it in its season. Okay, so maybe I should be asking you what this tree is. If I gave you a little clue and told you that if I was to take this leaf and cover myself with it, maybe you would remember the reference to the Bible. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they perceived that they were naked, and they sewed together fig leaves and made themselves loincloths. Beautiful fig leaf, very big, very developed. But if you want to eat a fig off this tree, you will have to come back in about 2-3 months to eat the bright purple figs which go on the tree. It is a tree that has the longest season of fruit. It starts giving its figs in July and will keep on giving figs all the way through to October, but only 1 or 2 of them every day is ripe. And we compare it to learning the Torah, to learning the Bible. But the Bible, you can't learn it all in one day, but you learn a little bit each day, and each day there's something new to learn from it. So apart from the 7 species that were mentioned by name, there are another approximately 120 species. And we try to plant all of them here in this landscape. Okay, I'm holding here wheat and barley, but these weren't wheat and barley that were grown in the fields. These are wild wheat and barley that are growing here just behind me. This is the natural wild barley and wheat that covers the hillsides of Israel at this time of year. And if you think about the season, we just had the season of Passover. The season of Passover was traditionally celebrated by the first offering of the barley that was ripe. You can see the barley on the left here, which is already ripe. You can see the seeds of the grains have turned brown. You can recognize barley by its long hair, as opposed to the wheat, which traditionally ripens at Pentecost, which is the harvesting season of the wheat. And you can see here the stems are still green and the wheat is not yet barley, it is not yet ripe. They look different to planted wheat and barley. They beautifully cover the hillsides, waving in the breeze as the season goes on. Now, if you want to understand the Bible, then sometimes you need to come here to understand the language and the seasons and the nature, because it's all entwined. If you take a Song of Ascents, 126, and you hear the quote, "They who sow in tears shall reap with songs of joy. Though he goes along weeping, carrying the seed bag, he shall come back with songs of joy, carrying his sheaves." Why would he sow in tears? Because if you pick 50 pomegranates for a pomegranate tree, that tree will still produce pomegranates next year. But when you get the grain from your wheat and barley, you have to decide. Do you eat it? Do you feed it to your family? Or do you sow it in the ground? Do you plant it in the hope that your barley crop or your wheat crop will give new wheat and barley next year?